Today on Newsgirls, FBI in chaos after Charlie Kirk murder. This guy absolutely mangled the investigation
and made agents take like political loyalty tests.
Bilt card launches a sitcom.
It's really funny. It feels kind of like New Girl.
Can you tell us about the creative process?
It's really subtle as opposed to trying to throw product at them.
And Martini Expo, more popular today than they've ever been.
Drinks that were called martinis but weren't really martinis, like espresso martinis.
Best recipe or any tips for making martinis at home.
Hey everyone, welcome to Newsgirls.
I'm Wren.
And I'm Mabel.
Let's get into the stories.
Wren, what the is going on at the FBI? It seems like the Bureau has been falling apart ever since Kash Patel, who has no intelligence or law enforcement experience, took over as director. I mean, from the messy handling of the Epstein Files to all the shady politics happening at the Bureau, it's unfortunate that it has taken the assassination of Charlie Kirk for everyone to pull back the curtain on Kash Patel.
This guy absolutely mangled the investigation. There's literally a cartoon going around that says there's a suspect in custody despite Kash Patel. So basically the biggest thing, of course, was he posted on X the day that Charlie Kirk was murdered that they have a subject in custody, just minutes before the Utah officials did a press conference saying the killer was still at large.
So it turns out that the FBI was actually questioning this guy as a person of interest, not a suspect. So Kash had to walk back this claim less than 2 hours later, which was so embarrassing. And even senior leaders at the Justice Department criticized him for just posting this half-baked idea to social media before investigators even made a breakthrough.
Yeah, that is not normal for the FBI directors to be tweeting. They usually, the FBI will release press releases or official statements or do a press conference, not just whatever willy-nilly tweets. And then another confusing mistake that was made was that early in the investigation, it was leaked to the press, a report that agents found engravings expressing, quote, transgender and anti-fascist ideology on the bullets inside the murder weapon. And of course, people on the internet ran wild with that.
Yeah, we were actually reporting on this story and doing research when that alert came out, and we were like, what does that literally even mean? And we were all kind of just waiting for that conclusion, only to later find out that none of the casings said anything to do with transgender people. The only thing reported on the casings that had to do with sexuality, I guess, was, quote, if you're reading this, you're gay, LMAO.
And it turns out the suspect does live with a trans partner, but at that point in the investigation, there was no suspect. We had no idea who did this. So how did this inaccurate information get leaked?
And speaking of the weapon, the FBI made another error by holding on to the rifle for way too long before handing it in for analysis. And the Justice Department actually had to get involved and be like, you need to hand this in ASAP.
Clearly, Kash was feeling the pressure to make up for all of these mess ups because he lashed out during an FBI video call with 200 agents from across the country. I guess he was swearing in almost every sentence and yelling at everyone and said he will not tolerate any more Mickey Mouse operations.
Reportedly, he was just screaming at agents for not giving him information fast enough or apparently not waking him up in the middle of the night with updates.
And then, of course, we all saw the press conference after suspect Tyler Robinson was arrested when Kash was there celebrating the FBI's successful work. And he emphasized twice that he had made the decision to release the photos that ended up leading to finding this guy. But people were quick to point out, actually, he was turned in by his dad. So they just got lucky that his dad was willing to do that.
And on top of that, Kash Patel's style in taking all of this credit rubbed agents the wrong way, because that isn't really an FBI director's MO. They usually spread the wealth and praise all of their agents. But he obviously took all of this credit for himself, and that just kind of adds to all the anger and frustration that's brewing at the FBI.
So naturally after this, a lot of people are just questioning his competency. Even well-known right-wing influencers like Christopher Rufo, who runs a Republican think tank, posted, "It's time for Republicans to assess whether Kash Patel is the right man to run the FBI."
And this was obviously the focal point of the hearings this week, where Kash was questioned before the Senate and House Judiciary Committees on the Kirk case and just running the FBI.
And could I have been more careful in my verbiage and included an A subject instead of subject? Sure, in the heat of the moment, but I was doing the best I could.
Candor, I don't quite get that, because if we have our man, that would suggest to the public that everybody can rest and relax and not then continue to provide information to local law enforcement and to you.
Well,
so that was a mistake.
I don't see it as a mistake.
I don't think you're fit to hand the Bureau, but here's the thing, Mr. Patel. I think you're not going to be around long.
That rant of false information does not bring this country together. If you want to work on bringing this country, it's my time, not yours.
My God.
If
You're
you
gonna
want to
lecture
talk
me
about
dividing this country,
it is my
I follow
time.
you on your social media posts that
It is
tear
my
this country
time
apart.
to
There
address
should be a
your
unifying-
falsehoods.
Oh,
You are an
you can try
embarrassment
all
to the
you
division
want
in this country.
to not
Senator
take
Bilt.
responsibility
It is my time.
for what
You
you
had
have
your
said.
time.
Sir,
And we remember when Trump truthed that Kash Patel was going to lead the FBI, aka the most important law enforcement agency in the country. And we were all kind of like, how? Like, who is this guy? He has no law enforcement experience, like we mentioned. He used to be a federal prosecutor, but he's just more well known for being an extremely pro-Trump influencer. And that in itself is concerning because FBI directors are supposed to be completely nonpartisan.
Well, he definitely is partisan at the very least. He's on the board of Trump's media group that owns Truth Social. And oh my God, this was insane. He's written pro-Trump children's books. So there's this trilogy that's out there called The Plot Against the King. LOL. The book begins on choosing day when, quote, the whole land gathered at the castle to choose the next ruler of the kingdom. So the candidates are merchant Donald Trump and a woman named Hillary Clinton. And basically what happens in the book is like Trump wins and all the people in the kingdom are saying that he cheated and are contesting this like election. And there's only one person who can save Trump and the entire kingdom, a wizard named Kash. Go figure.
It's just so obvious. That's so embarrassing for him.
So embarrassing.
And Queenton, why did he change Hillary Clinton's name and not Trump's?
Yeah, there's no point.
Like, well, he also wrote another book called Government Gangsters, where he names 60 people who he thinks are deep state dangers to democracy. And you'll never guess who's on that list. Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, all the regulars.
Yeah, he literally has this like enemy list out in the public and said, quote, we will go out and find the conspirators. We're actually going to use the Constitution to prosecute them for crimes they said we always have been guilty of but never have. And now Kash's critics are worried that he will use all of the power that he has for retribution.
Well, people are already alleging that he has done that because just hours before Charlie Kirk was murdered, 3 top FBI officials filed a lawsuit against him and Attorney General Pam Bondi, accusing them of illegally firing them as part of a campaign of retribution for their failure to demonstrate sufficient political loyalty.
Oh, yes. So the lawsuit details how Kash literally went in and fired people who worked on past investigations involving Trump and made agents take like political loyalty tests where they asked him questions like, have you voted for a Democrat in the last 5 elections? And this is crazy. Do you agree that the FBI agents who stormed Mar-a-Lago should be held accountable?
He's also fired extremely experienced people who would have had a direct bearing on the Kirk investigation, like a highly regarded counterterrorism agent who had been appointed to run the Salt Lake City, Utah office. Her colleague said she had unparalleled expertise in exactly these kind of investigations.
And as a result of all of these like layoffs and changes and loyalty obstacles, the FBI is changing what it stands for and what its goal is. So basically, like, instead of focusing on counterterrorism and intelligence and national security, it's becoming Trump's personal police force and focusing on the things that we all know he really cares about, which is violent crime, drugs, and immigration, which he already has ICE and other agencies focusing on.
And doing that diverts attention and resources from the other very important tasks that only the FBI is in charge of, like the Iranian assassination plots on U.S. soil, Chinese spying and hacking of American cell phones, ransomware attacks against hospitals, Russian influence operations aimed at sowing disinformation, just so many important criminal and national security threats.
And these changes at the FBI are also happening at the bottom. So the incoming class of FBI agents in October will have way lower requirements to actually join. So they won't need bachelor's degrees. They don't have to go to college.
That's crazy.
And instead of 18 weeks of mandatory training at the FBI Training Academy, they'll only need 8.
That's literally less than half. And in past years, the FBI agents have been extremely impressive. Like last year, one class that was inducted, almost half had advanced degrees, mostly in technology and law. It's funny how the whole department is kind of following the director's lead because he is much less qualified, or at least much less experienced than past directors. Now he's allowing everyone else to be too.
I mean, allegedly, he spends more time at the club than he does at the office. I guess he...
like the club.
Exactly. Thank you, Ren.
Yeah.
I guess he bounces back and forth a lot between DC and his residence in Vegas, and he's been seen partying. But as we know, Kash is obsessed with like his image, so he's actually suing the guy who said that for $75,000.
That's crazy. Oh, he is very sensitive, so he actually administered lie detector tests on senior FBI employees to ask them whether they have said anything negative about him.
And the same way that he's like protecting himself and making sure that his own reputation is airtight, he's protecting Trump. And we see that the most when it comes to how he's been handling the Epstein Files.
Right. So before Kash was FBI director and actually saw what was in the files, he shared a lot of Epstein death conspiracies and was like shouting from the rooftops that clearly the FBI is protecting the world's foremost predator, basically to shield the other names on the list. And then even when he was named director, he promised there will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, and no stone left unturned.
He took over and literally redirected hundreds of FBI agents from field offices to pour over hundreds of thousands of Epstein files. So according to a letter from the House Judiciary, agents were instructed to, this is insane, review, flag, and redact any mentions of Mr. Trump during those sessions. And those employees worked overtime. Apparently they slept on their desks while waiting for more documents and just did so much work. But then to everyone's anger and surprise, none of these files were released.
But all you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration, and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice Department did squat. And what did President Trump do? Bring new charges courageously. And what have we done?
Chairman,
you said
take
I'm the
control
most
of this
transparent
situation.
FBI director in history.
Take control of this
33,000 pages of information to you.
I mean, that change of tune is crazy. How else are we possibly supposed to read that other than he's protecting Trump? And what's funny is for years, Trump has hated the FBI because he said it was used as a political tool against him, you know, Russia hoax and the insurrection and the classified documents case. But now he's doing exactly that and using it as a political tool.
Exactly. And even though presidents do influence the FBI's priorities, this is so extreme. I mean, FBI directors do have a tenure of 10 years, so they are supposed to ideally span political administrations so that the Bureau remains as apolitical as possible. So like Biden kept Christopher Wray, which was actually Trump's first FBI director, as like respect and kind of tradition. But when Trump was reelected, he fired his own director to hire Kash, who has no experience, and now things are just really bad.
Yeah, an inside source said, morale is the worst I've seen. The Bureau is becoming unrecognizable. So Mabel and I were scrolling on TikTok the other day and we came across what looked like a TV show, but like vertical, like on TikTok, like a sitcom about roommates, and it was called Roomies. And so we watched a few episodes and it was actually really funny and well done.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm 25 years old and this is my first day in New York City. I am completely anonymous. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Get the out of my way.
Oh my God.
And so we clicked on the page and it turned out it was posted by Bilt, which everyone knows is like a credit card loyalty program. I think their flagship feature is that you can use this credit card to pay for your rent and earn points on your rent.
No, it's actually really funny. It feels kind of like New Girl, and it's apparently for Zillennials. It takes place in New York. And it's what's interesting is that Bilt hasn't even been mentioned yet. So like we're kind of waiting for that advertising to actually come up, because if we didn't look that up, we wouldn't even know that they were behind the series.
Yeah, like you and I are now watching, so like hawk-eyed, we did notice Bilt on a window that was being passed, but that was it. So we're thinking because they're roomies and because its trademark features the rent thing, that's going to come in at some point. It just hasn't been introduced yet. Like she's going to pay her rent with Bilt.
Yeah, that has to happen. And I mean, it does seem like people like it. Like it's gotten hundreds of thousands of views.
Well, some episodes even millions.
And it's interesting, this kind of like advertising strategy has become more common recently. So Bratz, like the dolls, I guess wrapped season 2 of their weekly TikTok series called Always Bratz. The beauty brand Tower 28 actually hired someone from the sex lives of college girls to make.
I love that show.
Well, they're making a sketch comedy series about blush called The Blush Lives of Sensitive Girls.
Oh.
So we should check that out. And then we saw that the US Open actually launched their own dating show called Game Set Matchmaker to kind of advertise like tennis and stuff. So we are seeing big brands do more like long form creative advertising to, I guess, kind of capture people's attention in this like oversaturated advertising market.
And if you're not familiar with Bilt, it has been around only for 4 years. It came out in 2021 and it's this kind of newer, definitely like taps into like a trendy vibe. And the points guy does rank it as one of the most valuable awards points if you're a member of it. And they have a lot of partners that you can redeem these points on, and like travel, rent. And they actually announced soon you'll be able to pay your mortgage with it and earn points on mortgage payments, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. So Bilt, everyone was talking about it, seemed to be doing really well. Its latest valuation was at $10.75 billion, and it was accepted at more than like 4.5 million homes across the country. But I guess a couple months ago, Wells Fargo, which was like the bank that was basically backing Bilt, ended its partnership with Bilt, and reporting says that Wells Fargo was losing as much as $10 million a month to the card. But I guess also that same day, Bilt put out a press release saying that they were mutually splitting ways, so nobody really knows kind of what happened with that.
And that makes everyone kind of wonder, is their model sustainable at all, no matter who they're partnered with? They have now announced a partnership with the fintech firm Cardless. So Cardless now will be issuing all their credit cards and taking on the ones from Wells Fargo starting in February.
But I guess either way, Bilt really knows how to market itself to young people. That's kind of what it's known for, young people who are finally getting their first apartments. And Roomies is just an example of how they're marketing kind of really intelligently to the right demographic.
So we are excited to speak to the chief marketing officer at Bilt, Zoe Oz, about how they came up with the idea to do their own TV show.
So Zoe, how did the idea of making Roomies, which is of course the original show by Bilt, come to be? How did you guys decide to basically make a sitcom?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back. I think in the early days of creating Bilt, we always knew from the beginning we wanted to be a brand that was known for investing in their brand and one that really understood their customers. I mean, ultimately, we're building a product for ourselves. We use it all the time. We were renters in New York and we wanted something back for those dollars. And so I think when it came to the kind of brand we wanted to develop, we knew we wanted to be different. We knew we wanted to connect with our users in a really unique way. And so content has always been a big part of that and a big way that we reach those customers. So I think for years since we launched the product, we've thought about other ways to reach these customers and what are ways that are going to engage them and entertain them. And so we've actually developed a few show concepts along the way. Roomies was one of the first ones that we really decided to take a big swing on and do something that really wasn't just about our product. Obviously, sitcoms is the number one category. They're always the best performing shows. How do we seek to make TV for a scrolling era in a really different time period when people aren't often watching 30-minute episodes anymore?
Can you tell us what the creative process, like from start to finish, hiring writers, I assume, cast?
All of this was created fully in-house. So from the production to the scripting to concepting to finding actors, all of it was done fully in-house by our content team, and they're absolute rock stars. So in the early days, it was really, what does an initial script look like? How do we write a pilot for this? And what's funny is we actually launched a version of this show really, really early days that was not serialized. It was like little snippets of roommates living in a house together. And that content didn't perform. I think it was really important that our team adapted quickly. But we had a version of it that was just these roommates, they played on TikTok trends, they had some jokes between them, but it very much was not highly produced sitcom worthy content. And that's just not what people wanted. I think they're really used to seeing that on TikTok. It didn't feel really unique. It didn't feel different. And so we went back to the drawing board and we said, okay, we should think differently about how this should be approached. And at that point, it became obvious, like maybe you start from the beginning. Maybe in order to fall in love with these characters, you actually have to see how they met. You have to see their backstories. You have to see how they all fit together, as opposed to just jumping in and seeing roommates kind of out of the blue. We did the whole casting situation, which there were a lot of people we looked through and they were all very talented, but I think the chemistry between these characters just made a lot of sense, as I'm sure the original casters of Friends felt when they saw everyone together on set. They just felt immediately, this makes total sense.
We kept expecting to see Bilt advertising. We were surprised to not see any, except, I mean, we saw like a Bilt building in one of the episodes. How do you advertise the product in the brand in that kind of way that it feels so subtle?
Honestly, we really trust our viewers. Like they will, if a brand's behind something, they'll figure it out. And so we just put at Bilt in the bio and people figured it out. And I think that was part of the magic, was if they find it out on their own, it's really subtle, it's not in their face, and we're really meeting customers and viewers where they are as opposed to trying to throw product at them, I think they're a lot more forgiving and they're a lot more okay saying, okay, this is by a brand and I'm going to love it because of that and not in spite of it. Whereas I think a lot of viewers these days, when they're watching pure marketing, they don't want to love it because they don't want to love something that a brand is pushing at them. In the longer term, you'll start to see the product weaved in, but not in ways you'd expect. I think the idea for this show is actually, it's almost representing a Bilt universe. Like this is a world where roomies live, where of course you pay your rent with Bilt, and of course you go to Bilt neighborhood restaurants, and of course you go to a fitness class that Bilt offers, and of course you go to an experience and a comedy show through Bilt.
Like the Bilt cinematic universe. It's like,
Exactly.
And in the beginning, when you were conceptualizing this new show, did you face any pushback when you were pitching or when your team was pitching this?
There's a lot of trust across the entire team that in order for us to create a brand that really resonates and one that has lasting power and one that people want to connect with and have an emotional connection to, you have to do things differently and you have to think outside the box.
How do you measure the success rate of a project like this where it is so like vague and you want to, you know, build company culture? Like, is it how many people end up getting the Bilt card through watching it? Is it just views? How do you measure the success?
So again, these early days, I think it's really mostly about views. It's engagement. It's what are the comments looking like? Are there people in the comments who know what Bilt is and are saying, oh, this is so funny? For the immediate term, that will be the ultimate goal is can we continue to garner attention and eyeballs? And does it become a conversation starter?
No, that makes sense. Like watching Roomies just feel so refreshing in such an oversaturated like advertising market. Do you think that we're in this era where we will start seeing companies in general start to get more creative and invest more in their advertising strategies just because everyone is so sick of just having products like shoved down their throat all the time on social media?
I think those brands, all brands, including us, are going to have to. You have to be a really dynamic, iterative, creative marketing team. Look, I think that there's a million different ways to market your product. And frankly, I don't think social media is the best one for all companies. I think that there's definitely some companies out there who are going to be more effective on ads or more effective with a different distribution channel, who on a more effective through influencer marketing. There's all these different ways that you can, and that we do market Bilt. And they all have different success metrics. They all have different goals. Social is a changing landscape. It's constantly changing. It's constantly a black hole where you never know what's going to perform versus not. And I think the only thing that you can trust about these algorithms is they'll tell you really quickly if you've hit something good or not.
Speaking of branding, it seems like Bilt over the past few years has tried to kind of expand its reputation or maybe shift its reputation from just being like a credit card to a whole loyalty program. We know about the points. We know mortgages are coming too. How should we think of Bilt's expansion? Like what all is Bilt?
We're not a credit card product. We are a rewards product. We have a card if that's an option you go down, but card members only represent 15% of our entire member base. Like the vast majority of our members do not have a card. Obviously, we started as a rent payment platform. And offering points on those payments. Then you think about our entire neighborhood rewards ecosystem. You know, we help you love where you live effectively. That's the simplest way to think of it. And that's your home and the area immediately surrounding your home. And then of course we have this massive ecosystem of travel partners. So there's so much to offer.
Hi everyone. Hi guys. We are at the first ever Martini Expo in Brooklyn, New York.
And we're about to do a martini tasting, so wish us good luck because it's literally the middle of the day.
We now feel like we're martini experts.
We've learned so much.
3 different kinds here. So the first one is a classic dry martini with a twist.
Forged gin. It's really strong.
Drier than we're used to, but it's good.
It's really
actually
good.
is refreshing. And the second one is a Gibson martini, which we learned has, you can see it has a little pickled onion. It's sweeter than you think it's going to be.
Yeah, it's not as savory. Like there is something, I guess it's the blanc vermouth. Makes it really sweet. There's a lot of sugar in it.
And then this one was kind of like the dessert one.
The Velvet Tuxedo number 2. Cheers.
Cheers. That's good. It does taste like a Negroni.
It's really good. It's very Negroni. It's strong.
This would be probably the one I'd get again.
Me too. It's like fruity, and we like fruitier drinks.
Yeah. And we got socks.
We got socks,
which is always a good thing.
Forged gin socks.
I mean, the expo was so fun. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've been wary to drink martinis over the years because they're so strong, and I feel like there's just too big of a risk. But now I actually want, especially the Velvet Martini, I'm going to start ordering.
Yeah, Wren and I are definitely more sugar, cocktail girls. That's something we've always bonded over because our friends have kind of graduated to drinking martinis every time we were at dinner and stuff. And so this is kind of our introduction into that grown-up world.
And it was really cool because we got actually a history lesson about the advent of martinis and the rise of popularity and the fact that they're actually more popular today than they've ever been, which is saying a lot because they're so iconic. James Bond, shaken, not stirred. Is there a more iconic line in history?
So we're speaking to the organizer of this event, Robert Simonson, who's also the cocktail and spirits writer for the New York Times. He also has his own Substack newsletter called The Mix, where he talks about spirits and cocktails and what's trendy now.
So Robert, we know you are a cocktail and spirits writer, but also kind of an expert. So, what is it specifically about martinis that you love?
Well, the martini is the most famous cocktail ever in the world. We haven't stopped talking about it since they invented it back in the late 19th century. So it has that fascination. For some reason, it's the one cocktail that inspires prolonged debate. It inspires poets to write poems, writers to write short stories, painters to paint paintings. It's just endlessly fascinating. So I'm just part of that continuum.
And we know that there's so many different kinds of martinis. There's like vodka, there's gin, there's different garnishes. Can you walk us through some of the most popular types of martinis and what is your personal favorite?
Certainly. The martini started as a gin cocktail, but back in the early days it was actually kind of sweet. The gin was sweeter and they used sweet vermouth. And then it became a drier gin cocktail with London dry gin and dry vermouth. And as the years went on, there was less and less vermouth. Around the 40s and 50s, vodka made an appearance, became popular. People started drinking those because they were convinced that it didn't leave any scent on your breath, and so people wouldn't know you were drinking, which is ridiculous because martinis are highly alcoholic, and people are going to know you're drinking it in other ways. After that, the dirty martinis started to come around about in the 80s or 90s. In the 90s, we started getting drinks that were called martinis but weren't really martinis, like espresso martinis and chocolate martinis and green apple martinis. You mentioned garnishes. The classic one is the olive. Another common one is the lemon twist. I'm pretty much a classicist, so I'm going to have like a 3-to-1 gin martini with a lemon twist. And sometimes an olive and a twist.
Yeah.
We knew you were going to say gin. It just, you have to stick to
Well,
the
gin just
original.
has so much more flavor. It's got all those botanicals, and it makes the drink more interesting for me, anyway.
And so walk us through you having the idea to have this Martini Expo and like, how did it come, what inspired you and how did it come to be?
Yeah, 3.5 years ago, my wife, Mary Kate Murray, and I founded a Substack. We write about everything we want, drink, food, travel. And we were having a brainstorming session back in March, and we were doing it over martinis. And I don't know who said it, if it was Mary Kate or myself, but I mean, I go to a lot of cocktail conventions, and we thought, there's never been a convention about one drink. We thought, well, a martini is really the only cocktail that could support a convention because there are just so many variations and there's so much history and so much culture surrounding it. So we started asking people, and everyone kept saying, yes, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And the ball started rolling, and then it was impossible to stop it.
That's so cool. I mean, it felt like a very timely expo because we read in an interview that you said martinis are now more popular than they've been before, which is surprising since they've been around for so long. Why do you think we're seeing this like resurgence of the martini, especially in younger Gen Z culture?
The pandemic had something to do with it. They were starting to become popular again, like in 2018, 2019, a little bit. But then in the pandemic, we were all forced inside and we had to make our own drinks. And if you're going to make your own drinks, you have to do the simple ones. Martini is one of the simplest drinks out there. It was a hard time, and so everyone needed a strong drink. And a martini is a strong drink. And then once we were all unleashed onto the public again and the bars were open, we went to the bars and we said, give me a martini. And if they didn't have a martini, they came up with one. And now, 5 years later, we're at a place where every bar and every restaurant has a house special martini.
Well, speaking of that, we need to ask you, where is the best place to get a martini in New York?
In New York, we're so spoiled. We're so lucky. You're always going to get a great martini. Gage and Tollner in Brooklyn.
Good to know, Wren. We have to
Yeah,
go.
we will be going.
And then I guess for the people who are making martinis at home, do you have a best recipe or any tips?
Well, they should do the recipe they like. Stronger, weaker vodka or gin, but definitely make sure it's cold. So put your glasses in the freezer, beforehand. And maybe even your mixing glass in the freezer. Martini always tastes better when it's cold.
And so now transitioning into all cocktails, because while we have you, we just have to pick your brain about all types. So we have a little rapid fire.
Okay.
What do you think is the most overhyped cocktail of all?
The espresso martini, which is enormously popular. And it's not that I think it's a bad cocktail. I don't think that. I just think it's overhyped at this point.
100%.
That is so true.
And then on the flip side, what is the most underrated cocktail?
I'm going to say an undersung minor classic. It's called a Jack Rose. It's made with apple brandy, lemon juice, and grenadine.
That sounds like a very good fall cocktail.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And how about, what is your best tip for pacing yourself if you're having a long dinner or something?
We're in a very good situation right now because on menus there's a lot of low alcohol cocktails and also non-alcoholic cocktails. And so what people have been doing these days is, I guess it's called zebra drinking. So they'll drink an alcoholic one, then a non-alcoholic one, then an alcoholic one, and that's a very good way to pace yourself.
And do you have any hangover cures?
Drink less.
That's fair.
Everyone thinks I don't think there are hangover cures. If you can find something that works for you, fine. But just don't drink too much. Be sure to hydrate yourself the whole time you're drinking, and always, have food. You got to have a base.
And so now we'll just give you scenarios and you can say what the best drink for the scenario would be. So best drink for partying with friends.
I would think, highballs are making a comeback now, like whiskey highballs, especially the ones made with Japanese whiskey.
What about networking drinks with colleagues where you want to not seem too crazy?
Yeah, I think with colleagues, maybe you want to do something a little that makes you seem a little more serious. So how about like some Negronis? Everyone likes Negronis.
Totally.
And that's an adult drink.
What about a relaxing drink on the beach?
Well, you're going to want something refreshing, so you're going to go into spritz territory. We know the famous April spritz, or you could do Campari and soda. There are the Hugos. There's so many choices.
And the last one for a romantic date night.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Why not cocktails? How about just some champagne?
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe.
And join us next week because we are talking to the iconic former presidential candidate, Andrew Yang.
Yay! Bye.